For council members participating by electronic means, please ensure your video is turned on and let the clerk know if you leave the meeting for the purpose of confirming quorum. Council members are reminded that in accordance with section 14.13 of the procedure bylaw, members must enable their video to confirm quorum. If council members attending by electronic means lose connection during any portion of the hearing, we will recess the meeting until the connection is restored. If council members lose connection during the voting process, staff will get back you back online quickly while we suspend the voting process. The contact information has been circulated to council. Members of the public can view the proceedings via the live stream and YouTube, which will be posted out on X at Van City Clerk. And to begin, we acknowledge that we are on the unceded homelands of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people. We thank them for having cared for this land and continue our commitment to working with them in partnership to build this city together. In case of an emergency where we need to evacuate the building, I would like to direct your attention to the exits in the council chambers. There are 2 exits beyond the glass doors and to the left. If these exits are obstructed, please direct your attention to the 4 exits in the council chambers. Please use the stairs and not the elevator. And I would like to highlight that there's a defibrillator located at the end of the hallway outside the council chambers. I'd also like to take a moment to recognize the immense contributions of the City of Vancouver staff who work hard every day to make Vancouver an incredible place to call home. Clerk, may we have the roll call, please?
Mayor Sim is absent. Councillor Carr. Councillor Kirby-Young is on a leave of absence for civic business all day. Councillor Dominato. Councillor Bly.
Present.
We have Councillor Boyle in the chair. Councillor Fry is on a leave of absence for civic business. Councillor Montague.
Present.
Councillor Klassen. Councillor Meisner is on a leave of absence for personal reasons. Councillor Joe. You have quorum. Acting Mayor Boyle.
Thank you so much. Before we begin, I have some announcements. The public may participate by speaking in person, by phone, or by submitting written comments to Mayor and Council. Speakers will have 5 minutes to make their comments and should limit their comments to the merits of the report being considered. Speakers should also state whether they are in support or opposed to the recommendations and if they are a resident of Vancouver. Speakers may only speak once and should follow along on Twitter or X at Van City Clerk for updates on the progress of the meeting so they don't miss their turn to speak. Any comments on written agenda items can be submitted in writing through our online web form at Mayor and Council Public Hearing Feedback. This link will also be posted on Twitter. Those speaking on behalf of 4 or more persons or groups, including the speaker, will have 8 minutes to speak, and only if those represented are also on the line or in person and must not be individual speakers themselves. I want to note the City of Vancouver's longstanding commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion, including utmost respect for all genders. I remind Council that when addressing speakers and staff, we will avoid using gendered honorifics and instead refer to the person by first and last name, role, or title. A reminder that Council's role at a public hearing is to be a quasi-judicial body, which means Council is to only consider the merits of the rezoning application or heritage designation. Council members may also ask clarifying questions from speakers, including the applicant, or technical advice from staff, but should save debate for after the close of the speakers list. After hearing from speakers, Council may 1, approve the application in principle, 2, refuse the application, or 3, refer the application to staff for further consideration. And finally, if Council does not conclude hearing from all speakers this evening, we will recess and reconvene the meeting later this evening, Thursday, November 16th at 6 p.m. Our first item is a rezoning of 3529 to 3589 Arbutus Street and 2106 West 19th Avenue. Does any member of council wish to declare a conflict of interest on item 1? I don't see any, and I will, because I am chairing virtually, count on councillors attending in person to make sure their mics are on if they're speaking, so I can make sure I don't miss you. But now we'll hand it off to the clerk to read the application and summary of correspondence received.
This is an application by Andrew Chung Architects Incorporated to rezone 3529-3589 Arbutus Street and 2106 West 19th Avenue from R1-1 Residential District to RR-2B Residential Rental District to permit the development of a 5-story rental building, a height of 16.8 meters, equivalent to 55 feet, and a floor space ratio, FSR, of 2.40 are proposed. The General Manager of Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability recommends approval subject to conditions set out in the summary and recommendation with the addition of a yellow memorandum dated November 9th, 2023. The following correspondence has been received since referral to public hearing. 3 pieces of correspondence in support and 1 piece of correspondence in opposition. This represents all correspondence received up to 12 p.m. noon today.
Thank you very much. So this is the first call for speakers. Any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 106-1445# before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be posted on Twitter and made available on the live stream. And there will be an opportunity for new speakers and missed speakers to be added to the end of the registered speakers list. Clerks, am I correct in understanding there are no registered speakers for this item?
Yes, there are registered speakers.
Oh, there are. Okay. So we have staff from Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability here to present the application.
Good afternoon, Acting Mayor, Council, and members of the public. My name is Sarah Cranston, rezoning planner for this application, which is being considered under the secured rental policy. Staff would like to note there is a yellow memo attached to this report. The memo recommends minor amendments to the recommendations as a result of Council enacting the multiplex zoning amendments on October 17th. The amendments are to delete any reference to RS zoning and replace with the new R1-1 residential inclusive zone. No action is required on the yellow memo as corrections have been included in the summary and recommendations. The Secured Rental Policy, or SRP, encourages construction of new purpose-built rental housing in Vancouver. The policy aligns with the rental housing goals of the Housing Vancouver strategy and the complete neighborhood goals of the Vancouver Plan. Updates to the SRP were approved by Council in 2021 to create residential rental zones, also known as RR zones or district schedules. Council also approved mapping, which designates eligible areas for the standardized RR zones. Rezonings to standard rental districts have a simplified rezoning process. Instead of customized site-specific CD1 zones, the RR zones have standardized permitted uses, heights, and densities to provide certainty about the expected building forms in low-density areas. The RR districts are accompanied by design guidelines, which were also approved by Council. In the simplified process, architectural drawings are not required at the rezoning stage. The specific building design would be reviewed through a future development permit process, at which time the neighborhood would again be notified to provide their input. This map from the secured rental policy shows sites which are eligible for rezoning. Sites are eligible for rezoning based on proximity to public transit and local shopping, as well as being located on the first full block of an eligible arterial road. The yellow star indicates the site of this application, located on Arbutus Street between 19th and 20th Avenues. Shown in blue are the blocks around the site also eligible for a rezoning to an RR district. The eligible RR zone options for this site are shown on the screen. The site is eligible for both a mixed-use building and a residential building. For the subject application, the applicants are proposing an RR2B zone for a future 5-story residential building. Outlined in red, the subject site is an entire block face along Arbutus Street, comprised of 5 detached homes. At present, there are 2 tenants eligible for renter protections. The site shown in red is located near parks and schools. The site is well served by transit, with the Arbutus Greenway located across Arbutus Street. The site is also served by the number 16 bus, with a bus stop directly in front of the site. The proposed RR2B zone allows a 5-story rental apartment building. Because the subject property is a corner site, a density of 2.4 FSR is permitted. The Housing Vancouver strategy seeks to deliver a range of tenures and affordability across the housing continuum. Renting, shown in green on this table, has lower monthly costs than home ownership, which is shown in orange. The process for seeking public input on RR rezonings is the same as for CD1 rezonings. For this application, an open house was held April and May of this year, and 16 pieces of correspondence were received. Support was given for the increase in overall rental housing and for height and density, given proximity to amenities and to transit. Concerns were expressed regarding the potential negative impacts to traffic safety and congestion, and a lack of commercial space on the ground floor. In response to concerns of traffic safety, staff note that rezoning conditions have been included to deliver upgrades to the intersection of Arbutus Street and 20th Avenue. Conditions have also been included for improvements to the site's frontages along Arbutus Street, as well as to 19th and 20th Avenues. In response to concerns of a lack of ground floor commercial uses at this location, staff note that under the SRP, the site is eligible for both a mixed-use development and a residential apartment building. The SRP does not require ground floor commercial uses at this location. The applicant has elected to rezone to RR2B for a residential building, which is in keeping with the policy intent. There are notable commercial nodes 3 blocks north of the site at Arbutus Street and 16th Avenue, as well as the Arbutus Shopping Center located 3 blocks to the south of the site at Arbutus Street and King Edward Avenue. The public benefits accruing from this application include a DCL contribution of approximately $2.8 million. No CAC contribution is due, as the CAC policy for rezonings exempts routine, low-density, secured market rental buildings. Additional benefits include the secured market rental units, which will be secured through a housing agreement. In conclusion, staff support this proposal as it meets the intent of city policy by delivering a secured rental building. Staff support this application to rezone to the RR2B district schedule with the form of development reviewed through the future development permit process. Staff and the applicant team are available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, staff. Council, are there any questions from council to staff or to the applicant team? And a reminder that this is the only opportunity for council to ask questions of the applicant.
Acting Mayor Boyle, there's just,
Yes.
you need to ask the applicant if they would like to speak first.
Sorry, somehow I missed that line. Is the applicant team here and would you like to speak on the application?
Good afternoon, Acting Mayor and Council. This is Andrew Chung Architects. We are not doing any presentation, but we'll be happy to answer any question you may have.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for that. So I'll go back to council. Are there any questions from council to the applicant team or to city staff. I don't see anyone on the list. So we will now hear from the public, and I'll make my second call for speakers. If there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 106-1445# before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be posted on X or Twitter and made available on the live stream. Any speakers in the council chambers can please come forward to the podium before the close of the speakers list. Again, speakers will have 5 minutes to make their comments and should limit their comments to the merits of the report being considered. Our first speaker is listed as in person, Armin Chung. Do we have Armin or Armand? Yes, thank you so much. Go ahead, you have 5 minutes.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. It's me, Armand Chung, on behalf of University of British Columbia. I'm representing the Vancouver Housing Market Club, which is a club in University of British Columbia. I stand before you today as a concerned UBC student navigating the challenging landscape of our city's rental crisis. The rezoning application of 3529 to 3589 Arbutus Street and 2106 West 19th Avenue has the potential to impact the life of many, especially students like myself who face the harsh realities of the housing struggle. The proposed change from R1 to RR2B zoning presents an opportunity to address the pressing need for affordable housing, particularly for students who find themselves in the web of exorbitant rental costs. The secured rental policy amendments aim to streamline processes, increase housing choice, and enhance the livability of rental housing. As a student, I can attest that these changes are not just bureaucratic shifts, but essentially steps towards elevating the housing challenges we face. The University of BC's Alma Mater Society has reported alarming statistics. Approximately 8% of the students have experienced some form of homelessness, with 57% facing financial hardship relating to the housing. For international students, especially at the university, the struggle is even more daunting, with tuition fees reaching 7 to 8 times the standard rate. The rezoning proposal aligns with our collective goal to diversify rental housing options, responding not only to the immediate needs of the students, but also contributing to the broader objective of the city's climate emergency initiatives and local community enhancement. As we consider the impact of rezoning, let us remember that this is not merely about changing zoning codes, it's about changing lives. The potential for 5-story apartment buildings with secured market rentals could be a beacon of hope for students who are currently finding themselves in the precarious housing situations. It is crucial to acknowledge that this isn't about bricks and mortars, it is about fostering a sense of security, stability, and community. The rezoning process, with its simplified approach, provides a pathway to be more efficient and clear regulations, ensuring the suitable housing is not a distant dream but a tangible reality for students facing the uphill battle of finding a place to call home. In conclusion, I urge you all to consider the broader implication of this rezoning application. It's a chance for us to contribute to a solution that goes beyond the zoning districts and floor space ratios. It's an opportunity to create a city where every student, regardless of their background, can pursue education without constant worry of their housing insecurity. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thanks for making the time to speak. I don't see any questions for you, which means you covered it well. So thank you. We'll move on to our next speaker, who is listed as on the phone, Saru Agarwal. Is Saru on the phone?
Yes, I am. Can you all hear me?
We can hear you. Yes, you have 5 minutes. Go right ahead.
Okay, thank you so much. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Saru Agarwal, and I am a student at University of British Columbia, as well as a Vancouver resident from the last 2 years. I stand here before the body, not just as a student, but also a passionate advocate for a change that has the potential to reshape the landscape of our community. It's to allow the rezoning of the 3529 to 3589 Arbutus Street and the 2106 West 19th Avenue from the R1-1 to the RR-2B zoning. And this proposal is not merely about altering the housing market. It is also about addressing a critical issue that affects each and every one of us in Vancouver, the housing shortage. Even as a student, we are intimately familiar with the struggles of finding affordable housing. As Armand mentioned, it is a challenge to find affordable housing for students that not only impacts our performance at the university, but also our overall sense of well-being. I remember when I was looking for a house when I was starting university, I was not able to find a place because of my financial constraints near to the campus. Even now, I live 1 hour bus ride away in the Sunset District in Vancouver. And before I was able to find the place that I am currently residing in, I was a victim of renoviction because my landlord abruptly evicted me, claiming that they needed to renovate the property. And even 1 week after he served the notice, I understand that renovations are very much important and necessary. But just 1 week after he gave the notice, I found the property listed at 1.5 times the rental rate on a social media listing site. Just as well, I would not have been able to afford the rent, the 1.5 times the rent. So I was lucky to have found another place. But this just highlights the fact that finding affordable housing is such a great burden, a strain on students. And as Armand mentioned, in the University of British Columbia's Alma Mater Society statistics, 57% actually experience financial hardship related to housing. And as Armand mentioned, 8% lack a fixed nighttime residence, and this is a very this is a cause of concern for every one of us. Even in Greater Vancouver in general, moving beyond the perspective of a student, I find that from the Canadian Rental Housing Index, which is a national database of rental housing data, we have found a staggering increase in rental costs across the country, with BC leading the charge and Vancouver causing most of the increase in rent in BC. From about 600,000 residents in Vancouver, nearing 700,000 now, about more than, I would say more than 200,000 residents, according to this research, have been paying more than 30% of their income in just rent and utilities. I think that is a staggering statistic, and that affects the income affordability and the life of people in general in Vancouver in a huge way. And which is why I think the City of Vancouver's policy right now about dealing with this housing crisis, to build more housing, to make housing more affordable, would be a step in the right direction. And private developers need to get onto this, and which is why I think the rezoning application to transform the two districts we are discussing, the two areas, and moving them from the R1-1 to RR-2B would be a great step in the right direction. Some parting remarks are that, as we discussed in the very beginning, that we need to ensure that the public amenities are available in the rezoning district so that the individuals and the families who move as renters or owners can enjoy a good standard of living. And I think that has been taken care of so far, as I've heard. But apart from that, I would believe that new construction would be more eco-friendly, and that would align in the right direction with Vancouver's climate change objectives. But we also need to take care of the disruption to regular traffic that could occur because of construction in these areas, as well as a disruption to local businesses in these areas. And I believe that if these issues are addressed in tandem before any development projects are approved, the current residents, which I believe are also important to be considered, as well as the potential residents, will benefit from this rezoning. Thank you.
Thank you so much for making the time to call in. I don't see any questions, but really appreciate your contribution. And our third speaker for today, also on the phone, is Drishti Katwani.
The speaker is not on the line.
Okay, thank you, Clerk. Do we have any other speakers on the line or in person?
There are no other speakers in the chamber or on the line.
Okay, so I will call for a third and final time for any additional speakers. If there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 106-1445# before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be posted on Twitter and made available on the live stream. Any speakers in the council chambers can come forward to the podium. And unless the clerks say they see anyone coming forward now, we'll take a 5-minute recess for any additional speakers.
Councillor Montague and Councillor Bly were about to get started again. You have quorum, Acting Mayor Boyle.
Thank you very much, clerks. Do we have any additional speakers on the line or in the chambers?
No additional speakers.
Okay, thank you. Seeing there are no additional speakers, the speakers list is now closed. And seeing as there are little or no comments received after noon today, I'm now closing the receipt of public comments. Does the applicant have any closing comments?
No, I don't. We don't. Thank you.
Okay. And do staff have any closing comments?
They do not.
Okay, thank you. Does council have any questions for staff? And clerks, perhaps you could let me know, my screen just shut down to see if there are people on the list. Are there
Yes,
any questions?
Councillor Carr is on the list.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Carr, go right ahead.
Thank you. I was just, I didn't have a question. I was just willing to move the recommendations in the report along with the yellow
great.
memo.
Okay, moved along with the yellow memo by Councillor Carr. Do we have a seconder? Thank you. Moved by Councillor Carr and seconded by Councillor Dominato. Council, is there any debate?
Yes. I just wanted to also comment. I guess you can't see the list, sorry.
No, please go right ahead, Councillor Carr.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, first of all, I wanted to thank the students who came from UBC. It's the first time I've seen representatives from this particular club, the UBC Vancouver Housing Market Club. So very articulate and clear in presentations in support of this development, and I appreciate their interest in public policy. I also noted that one did talk about eco-friendly construction, which is close to my heart. So I'm hoping we can achieve both simultaneously eco-friendly and climate-smart construction, along with affordability of housing in this city. Both are of critical concern, I believe, to everyone. And so thanks staff for the work on it. This simplified rezoning process is a good one in my mind, so happy to be in support.
Thank you very much, Councillor Carr and Councillor Dominato.
Thanks, Chair. Thank you. Thanks, Chair, and equally thanks to the speakers who came in today and called in. Just to also echo my support for this application. It is a simplified rezoning process as well. As we know, we need additional rental in the city, and so this will deliver 94 secured market rental units on an arterial close to, in proximity of other commercial sort of shopping and other services and amenities, as well as we heard, the benefits potentially students going to UBC, and I dare say it's a 5-story, but we probably could be doing higher and more units at that location. But for today, I'm prepared to support it, and I'm glad to see it come forward. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Councillor Dominato. Seeing no other councillors on the list, I'll ask the clerks to move us to a vote.
Chair, this is Councillor Bly. Could I get a vote assist in favor, please?
You can, and hopefully the clerks can put that in.
Acting Mayor Boyle, do you need a vote assist?
Oh, I thought I had voted, but yes, please a vote assist in favor.
Acting Mayor Boyle, the votes are all in.
Thank you. Again, I apologize. I can't see the voting results, clerks. Can the clerks let us know the voting results?
Just one moment. We just have a slight technical issue. Just one moment.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, it's now completed, and the motion passes with Councillor Kirby-Young, Mayor Sim, Councillor Fry, and Councillor Meisner absent.
Okay, thank you very much, clerks. Council, before we move to item 2, Councillor Dominato has offered to step in and chair from the chambers. So I'm just going to ask for a verbal vote from council if you're willing to change the chair and have Councillor Dominato chair.
In favor.
In favor.
Great. Any opposed? Thank you very much, and thank you, Councillor Dominato. We're working on the fly a bit here, but I really appreciate the teamwork.
Thank you, Councillor Boyle. Appreciate that. Okay, we will move on to item 2 of our agenda this afternoon, rezoning application for 6075-6075 Collingwood Place. I'll first start by asking if any member of council wishes to declare a conflict of interest on item 2. Hearing none, the clerk will now read the application and the summary of correspondence received to date.
This is an application by Strand Holdings Limited to rezone 6065-6075 Collingwood Place from R1-1 Residential District to RR-2B Residential Rental District to permit the development of a 5-story rental building. A height of 16.8 meters, equivalent of 55 feet, and a floor space ratio, FSR, of 2.40 are proposed. The General Manager of Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability recommends approval subject to conditions set out in the summary and recommendation, with the addition of 3 yellow memorandums dated October 16th, November 9th, and November 15th of this year. The following correspondence has been received since referral to public hearing: 214 pieces of correspondence in support and 9 pieces of correspondence in opposition. This represents all correspondence received up to 12 p.m. noon today.
Thank you, clerks. This will be our first call for speakers. Any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by the participant code 1061445# before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be posted on X and made available on the live stream. There will be an opportunity for new speakers and missed speakers to be added to the end of the registered speakers list. We have staff from Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability here to present the application. They have 16 slides, and I recommend, given that we have a number of speakers, that council hears the presentation this afternoon. Go ahead. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. My name is Jason Louie, and I'm the rezoning planner for this application, which is being considered under the secured rental policy. Staff would like to note there are 3 yellow memos attached to this report. The first yellow memo provides clarification on a minor typo in the summary of the report, which incorrectly states the number of estimated market rental units this project is expected to deliver. No action is required by council. The second memo recommends minor amendments to the recommendations as a result of council enacting the multiplex zoning amendments on October 17th. The amendments are to delete any reference to RS zoning and replace it with the new R11 residential inclusive zone. No further action is required on this yellow memo, as corrections have been included in the summary and recommendations. The third memo includes an additional condition in Appendix B of the report to require vehicular and loading access to be located off West 44th Avenue. Action is required by council. The enabling policy for residential rental zones is the secured rental policy. The SRP encourages new purpose-built rental housing in Vancouver. The SRP aligns with the rental housing goals of the Housing Vancouver strategy and the complete neighborhood goals of the Vancouver Plan. Updates to the SRP were approved by Council in 2021 to create residential rental zones and a map with eligible areas for the standardized RR zones. Rezonings to standard rental districts have a simplified rezoning process. Instead of creating customized site-specific CD1 zones, the RR district schedules establish clarity on permitted use, height, and density. The RR zones provide more certainty about what building forms may be permitted in low-density areas. The schedules are accompanied by comprehensive design guidelines, which were also approved by Council. In the streamlined process, architectural drawings are not required at rezoning. The specific building design will be reviewed through a future development permit process when the neighborhood is notified again for public input and comments. This map from the secured rental policy shows sites that are zoned R11 or RT, which are outside of recent community plan areas and are eligible for RR rezonings. The locations are based on close proximity to public transit and local shopping, as well as being on the first full block on either side of an eligible arterial road. The yellow star indicates the project site, currently addressed on Collingwood Place, which is a local street. However, the site fronts Dunbar Street, which is an arterial road. The site is near local shopping, as shown in red to the north. Shown in blue are the blocks around the site that are also eligible for rezoning to an RR zone. Under the secured rental policy, this site is located on an eligible arterial road and is able to rezone to RR2A, RR2B, RR2C, RR3A, and RR3B. The eligible district schedules for this site, as well as their height and density, are shown on this slide. Mixed use is considered optional for this site. Sites that are eligible for mixed use include sites with a corner lot or sites that are immediately adjacent to a site that is currently zoned for commercial. Out of all the eligible options, the applicant has chosen to rezone to the RR2B district schedule for this project. The subject site, outlined in red, is zoned R11 and comprises of 2 detached homes. There are no rental tenancies on site. The site fronts onto 3 streets, including Dunbar to the west, Collingwood to the east, and West 44th Avenue to the north. As mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, a yellow memo with a new condition has been included for Council's consideration that would require vehicular access off West 44th Avenue. The site is surrounded by similar residential properties. There is an RR2B rezoning application right beside this site, which was approved by Council in principle in October of this year. Across the street on Dunbar, an RR2B rezoning application was approved by Council in principle in April of this year. Also across the street is a CD1 being used for multifamily residential purposes. Consistent with the intent of the SRP, the site shown in red is located near several parks and schools. Also nearby is a local shopping area located 2 blocks away on West 41st Avenue. The site is also well served by the number 49 bus route along this part of Dunbar Street. The applicant has chosen to rezone to RR2B for this project. The RR2B district schedule allows for a 5-story rental building with an FSR of up to 2.4. The Housing Vancouver strategy seeks to deliver a range of tenures and affordability across the housing continuum. Renting, shown in green, has lower monthly costs than home ownership, which is shown in orange. The process for seeking public input on residential rental rezonings is the same as for CD1 rezonings. An open house was held in February and 145 pieces of correspondence were received. Support was given for the increase in overall rental housing in the city, while support and concern were expressed about the appropriateness of the height of the building. Concerns regarding increased vehicular traffic to the area causing problems of access and congestion were raised. The lack of sidewalks and street parking on Collingwood Place were also a concern. During the development of the RR districts, staff analyzed apartment forms and gave attention to neighborhood contexts such as height. An extensive form of development review will be done during a future development permit process. Engineering staff have reviewed the proposed development for transportation safety issues and included rezoning conditions to deliver improvements that will address safety for all road users. This includes sidewalk upgrades along Dunbar Street and Collingwood Place to current standards and intersection upgrades at Dunbar Street and West 44th Avenue. Installation of parking regulatory signage on streets adjacent to the site are also included. The public benefits occurring from this application are the secured market rental housing units. There is a DCL contribution of approximately $2 million. The applicant has chosen not to take the DCL waiver. The CAC policy for rezonings exempts routine, lower density, secured market rental rezoning applications. In conclusion, this proposal meets the intent of city policy by delivering a secured rental building. Staff support this application to rezone to the RR2B district schedule with a form of development reviewed through the development permit process. Staff and the applicant team are available to answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. I'll also now check if the applicant team is here. I believe I saw them in the gallery. Do you have any comments or presentation?
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. My name is Cameron Thorne. I'm Senior Vice President Development with Strand. I'm pleased to be here today to speak to you regarding our proposed rezoning application for 6065 and 6075 Collingwood Street. First off, I'd like to applaud Council for its efforts to create more secured housing across the city under this SRP policy. We have a number of applications in the approval process, two of which were approved in principle by Council earlier this year, including one directly across the street on the west side of Dunbar Street. In terms of this project, well, the two reference addresses for this site are on Collingwood Street, based on the orientation of the existing houses. The residential lobby, the civic address, and the emergency response point of the proposed building would be on Dunbar Street. While staff in initial discussions had directed that parkade access be taken from Collingwood Place, in the course of obtaining public input, we became aware of neighborhood concerns regarding additional traffic in the cul-de-sac. Despite the lower grades in Collingwood Place, more favorable for a parkade entry, we have made the decision to situate the entry where the grades are higher and less favorable on account of these neighborhood concerns. And that would be taking parkade access off West 44th to the north. So staff are aware of this, and they have expressed their support for this revised location. And of course, that I think is referenced in the yellow memo that was issued yesterday. So consequently, there would be no vehicular address access to this building from Collingwood Place. The subject site currently has an asphalt driveway and a concrete path fronting onto Collingwood Place. The proposed rental building would relate to Collingwood Place by removing the asphalt and concrete surfaces and replacing them with abundant landscaping along the entire frontage. Council approval of this application will result in approximately 100 units of secure rental housing and less vehicle uses on Collingwood Place. We seek your support to deliver this greatly needed housing in this underserved area of the city. Thank you very much, and available to answer any questions if needed.
Thank you. Thank you. So this is your time, Council. First, if you have questions to staff and or the applicant, and this, again, as a reminder, this is your only time to ask questions of the applicant. I see one councillor on the queue. I'll advance you, Councillor Montague. Go ahead, Councillor Montague. You have 5 minutes.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Chair. My first question, I think, is towards staff. And it's in regards to, there's some references on the yellow memo specifically, but also in the report that came to council and the presentation as well, to a West 44th Avenue. I think there's been some confusion. If you drive down Dunbar Street, there's no sign for West 44th Avenue. When you go south of 43rd, there's only a laneway. But in my conversations, my understanding is that while there is no street sign and it looks like a lane and acts like a lane, the south lane of 43rd is actually West 44th Avenue on as legally or on the books. And I'm wondering if staff could just sort of explain that and get rid of any sort of confusion with regards to this talk about West 44th Avenue.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Alan Chen from Transportation Engineering. 3500 block West 44th Avenue is officially classified as a street and not a lane, and that's according to official city maps and bylaws. The city currently has 33 feet or approximately 10 meters of street right-of-way here at this location, and that's wide enough to accommodate two-way vehicle flow. That being said, with all intents and purposes, this section of the roadway has been functioning and operating as a lane for the past decades. As no properties are currently addressed off this block. This block of 44th Avenue also has narrower width, and because of its lack of curb, gutter, and sidewalks, it can often be seen as a lane when it is technically a street in our city records. However, regardless of whether the road classification, West 44th Avenue is fully adequate to be the safest and the standard location for site access.
Perfect. Thanks. Hopefully that clarifies everything because, like I said, it looks like a lane, it acts like a lane, but technically it is West 44th Avenue. So I'm hoping that that clarifies some confusion with not only myself, but with I think a lot of the people who live in the neighborhood. They see it as a lane, but technically West 44th Avenue. So I appreciate the response. And then my other question, I think it would be to, I guess, either the city or the applicant. I just wanted to confirm that. The plan is to have this no longer be a Collingwood Place address, but a Dunbar Street address to avoid any confusion that way as well.
Yes, Councillor Montague, that's correct. The civic address will be off Dunbar Street, as will the lobby, the emergency access point. All of that will be on Dunbar Street.
Great, thank you. Those are my questions, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Montague. I'll advance Councillor Clausen.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of really quick questions. Following up on Councillor Montague's questions regarding the alley, I noticed that it's a gravel, it's not a paved alley. Would there be any obligation, either by the city or the applicant, to do any paving on there? I presume that at least the entranceway would be repaved. Would that carry on down the alley? Would there be a street improvement that would come from this change?
Yeah, certainly. The applicant will be required as a condition to reconstruct the portion of West 44th Avenue that's fronting their site.
Okay, so that would be for the part where the actual development is abutting it, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And do we forecast any particular changes with regard to current, there is a marked sort of bike path, but although it's not a closed bike path along Dunbar Street next to the sidewalk. Do we forecast any sort of changes on Dunbar Street with regard to just making sure that we have clearly marked and safe cycling access to the street?
Currently, there aren't any cycling changes planned on Dunbar Street. However, the site is also required to provide a number of traffic and pedestrian improvements as conditions of enactment. And these include new and widened sidewalks on Collingwood and Dunbar, also within the existing mid-block walking connection that's just south of the site. There will also be new curb ramps and lane crossings along Dunbar adjacent to the site to improve the overall walking experience. Also, there will be improved street lighting adjacent to the site to our current city standards, including at the intersection of West 44th and Dunbar.
Excellent. Those sounds like great changes. Thanks very much. Appreciate the information.
Thank you, Councillor Clausen. I'll advance Councillor Carr. Go ahead, Councillor Carr.
Thank you. I wonder if you could reset my timer to...
Certainly, we can reset.
Thank you very much. First question to staff. I may have a follow-up to the applicant. I noticed that that this building has to comply with the current version of the Green Buildings Policy for rezonings, and that does include the most recent direction and targets in the Zero Emissions Building Plan, Climate Change Adaptation Strategy, Embodied Carbon Strategy, and Climate Emergency Action Plan. Could you just outline for me on public record what those requirements are? What are the current requirements for a building like this in terms of meeting our zero emissions building targets?
Thank you for the question. Casey Peters, Assistant Director, Rezoning Center. So yes, this project would be required to comply with the policy. We don't have staff available today to speak to the specific requirements, but that would be something that would be ensured through the development permit process.
Okay, thank you. Then maybe to the applicant. I'm just wondering if you've had any discussions with staff around what those specific targets are that you will be having to comply with in terms of zero emission buildings.
Yeah, great question. Without getting into the details, because of course we haven't submitted the drawings yet and reviewed the drawings with staff, but it will be following all of the green building standards set out by the City of Vancouver, and it's the City of Vancouver in some cases surpassing them. Whether that's just with matters of insulation or airflow in the buildings, low, watching how much water is consumed on the site. The quality of the windows. There's a lot of things that we do energy modeling on the project to make sure that we're finding a way to have the operating systems of the building working in the most energy efficient manner possible, the most sustainable way possible. So those are kind of a high level of the things that we do to make sure these buildings perform very well in the long term.
So I'm just curious, no gas, no fossil fuel, heating of hot water or the building?
Well, we haven't gotten into that stage. I mean, typically there is some level of gas involved in water. That the increasingly we're going to electrification, but I don't want to promise that we're always there, because there are times when you need to rely on gas as well.
Okay, good. Thank you for having
Sure.
giving me as much information as possible at this stage in the game. Appreciate it. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carr. Seeing no further councillors on the queue, we will move to hearing from the public. This is the second call for speakers. If there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by the participant code 106-1445# before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be posted on X and made available on the live stream. Any speakers in council chamber, please come forward to the podium before the close of the speakers list. As a reminder, speakers will have 5 minutes to make their comments and should limit their comments to the merits of the report being considered today. Now, I know we do have some speakers in chambers, and we'll start with our first speaker, Mark White. Good to see you, Chair of the Older Persons and Elders Advisory Committee. You have 5 minutes, Mark.
Thank you very much. Well, listen, when I came, I was not sure whether or not the sidewalk issue and the curb cuts were going to be part of the solution. And I'm absolutely thrilled that they are, from what I understand from the city report. And because I think that we've passed the accessibility strategy, and I think it behooves council and city staff to, in their review from an equity perspective of the various bylaws and policies and procedures, that we really make it live. We have over 400 kilometers of lack of sidewalks in the city. That was from the equity report that was delivered in April. And so I think that it really is important that for any future housing development, that we do have accessible pathways. Now, accessible pathways are not just in regards to sidewalks, but we also, in terms of requirements for people and neighbors and friends who have accessibility issues and mobility issues, to be able to get to their friends as well within the buildings. So I'm thrilled. I think that it would be very helpful for there to be a full review as part of the equity bylaw review process to look at all opportunities where there can be shared responsibility with developers and the city in ensuring that we have housing that people with disability have the same, and families with persons with disabilities have the same opportunity for housing than anyone else in the city, and that we can all thrive living in this fantastic city of ours. Thank you very much.
Hear me if off. Christina, could you hear us?
Yes, are you able to hear me?
Yes, you have 5 minutes to address council.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council members. My name is Christina, and I'd firstly like to thank you for your time today. I'm speaking to express my support for the proposed project 6075 Collingwood Place rezoning from R1-1 to RR-2B. I'm currently a university student and have grown up in Vancouver since I was 5. I love the city, all my friends and extended family are in here, and I would love to stay here. However, there are ongoing conversations between my friends and me about the concerns of affording housing in the neighborhoods where we grew up in. The dialogue has now shifted from students saving for a down payment post-graduation to questioning whether they can afford rent prices for a one-bedroom or studio unit in the city near work. Although rent prices may not be immediately affordable in this area compared to other parts in the city, the support for densification like this is a step in the right direction towards accessibility for the younger generation, especially in the west end of Vancouver, where accessibility would typically be out of the question for us. Additionally, I currently work in an internship helping lease a new purpose-built rental just like this one, where I often interact with students and rental households searching for housing. They often express to me how challenging it is to find affordable and, most importantly, livable housing, especially in an environment where private landlords aren't incentivized to adequately treat tenants as a property management would. Therefore, as the city's need for rental supply increases, I believe that projects for densification like this should be encouraged and prioritized in the rezoning process. This development is not just about a 5-story structure, it's about fostering an environment that supports the long-term accessibility for future residents and local workforce like me. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Christina. Thanks for calling in this afternoon. Our second speaker has withdrawn, so we'll move to speaker number 3, Kenneth Jang, who's anticipated on the phone. Do we have Kenneth on the phone? Go ahead, Kenneth.
Hello there.
Yes, go ahead.
Hi
You
there.
have 5 minutes to
Hi
address
there.
council.
All right, thank you. Hi there. So my name is Kenneth Jang, and I am a resident of Vancouver for 20 years now. And I just want to speak in favor of the rezoning proposal for a few factors. Number one, the housing crisis. I think that is probably the most important issue facing Vancouver as well as all of Canada. So I think that's priority number one. But talking about specifically this rezoning proposal and this location, I think it's a great idea. Although I'm not a resident of this exact location, I live, I would say, close enough where I cycle along Southwest Marine Drive and take the R4 bus to UBC on occasion. And I think this location is, well, it's exactly that, a prime location for densification, as a very good location along the bike route on Southwest Marine Drive, as well as just being a few blocks away from the R4 rapid bus system. So I think for those factors, this can be a very wonderful densification project and I think the council, for those reasons, should vote affirmative for this motion. So yeah, I don't have too much more to say. I yield the rest of my time. Thank you so much, council members.
Thank you, Kenneth, for taking time to call in this afternoon. We'll move to speaker number 4, Russell Wong. Do we have Russell on the line? Russell?
Yes. Hi, my name is Russell Wong. I'm a resident of Vancouver, and I'm calling to support this rezoning. We desperately need more housing. We've got a mismatch between housing and jobs, and so prices and rents have to rise to unbearable levels to keep people out and to force people to leave, especially younger people. As you see from the correspondence, people really want more housing. We have limited land, and so we need to use it effectively. In a neighborhood where a lot of people want to live, land prices will be high, which means that we should be allowing more height and density so that each household can economize on expensive land. The general rule is that for a new project, the cost of the land should be about 20 to 25% of the total cost. This neighborhood is close to transit, to amenities, and to UBC, so the average cost of a single detached house is $4 million. With land prices this high, it makes sense to have mid-rise apartment buildings like this one. If this building is built, it'll provide more than 90 badly needed secure market rentals, replacing 2 single detached houses with no displacement of renters. The recommendation that the parkade access be from the West 44th Avenue or lane so that Collingwood Place won't be affected seems like a reasonable approach. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Russell. Appreciate you making time to call in today. I had a note that our speaker 5, Armin Chung, had withdrawn, but I think Armin, you're still here. Oh, nope, you was there and gone like that. Okay, so Armin is not going to be speaking again. Next speaker is speaker 6, Alan Kenny, and I understand, Alan, you have a presentation today. Is that already with our clerks?
Great.
Welcome.
Testing, testing. That's great. Super. Thank you very much. Mayor Ken Sim, esteemed members of our municipal government and fellow residents. I am Alan Kenny. I'm representing my family, my wife Heather, my son Ethan, and our daughter Leah, who isn't here today. We all live in the Collingwood neighborhood. Our collective opposition to the rezoning application at 6075 Collingwood Place stems from concerns regarding pedestrian safety, traffic, and emergency vehicle access. We do not think that council has adequately considered the pedestrian and vehicle traffic safety issues of these two rezoning applications in our neighborhood. As you may recall from my October 17th presentation, our son Ethan has cerebral palsy and needs a wheelchair for both his mobility and his communication. This proposed development will introduce a significant increase in traffic, up to 94 units in this development and 34 in the development approved on October 17th. Plus, the current development's referral report was initially just for 34 units, but this has almost been tripled to 94 units. Our two cul-de-sacs on Collingwood Place, which you can see up here on the map which I've drawn, were specifically designed for a modest traffic flow and are simply not structurally suited for the traffic and the congestion that these two developments will bring. The sheer volume of vehicles added to our narrow street, the lack of sidewalks, creates safety issues for all pedestrians and emergency vehicles as well. And please note in the picture showing the lack of sidewalks south of 43rd Avenue. So that's Collingwood coming down, and then you've got that alley, and it is an alley. It says West 44th Alley. It looks like an alley. It's all gravel. It's an alley, and it just comes out and goes on to Collingwood Street, and there's still like a half a block without any sidewalk there, which is a huge safety issue, particularly for Ethan, because he goes up and down there to get to the bus. And then you can see there's no other sidewalks on Collingwood Place as well. So during the October 17th council meeting, our neighbors highlighted a critical issue. Fire emergency vehicles struggle to navigate our street during a fire due to parked cars. This was back in May. This fire was of this year. This documented and critical safety issue warrants council's immediate attention, especially in regard to this development. I urge council to consider 3 issues related to pedestrian safety, traffic, and emergency vehicle access. First, rezone this development as a comprehensive development CD3, allowing a thorough analysis of safety issues in our neighborhood. The secured rental policy provisions for CD1 can be employed to address these concerns effectively. Second, address the parking and pedestrian safety issues more specifically. The condition of approval, as outlined in the city's referral report.
Alan, can I just interrupt you for a minute? We'll let you finish, but we just temporarily have lost quorum, so we're just going to take a pause in our proceedings. So I'll let you to continue in a minute, but we just need to make sure we have enough councillors on. Okay, yeah. So you have a minute and a half still.
Okay, thank you. Second, address the parking and pedestrian safety more specifically. The condition of approval, as outlined in the city's referral report, needs revision to clearly specify restrictive parking signage from 43rd and Collingwood Street to the southern end of Collingwood Street and the entirety of Collingwood Place. Third, reconsider the vehicle entry point. The proposed West 44th Avenue is an unpaved, narrow back alley with backyards facing onto it. There's certainly no curbs or room there for parking, as there are many garages that enter the lane. Cars from the current residents will be entering and exiting off their garages off will now be a thoroughfare and recipe for many accidents. When paved, this new road will dramatically increase traffic down Collingwood Street to the entry point to the newly created 44th Avenue. Note from the picture, see the black line up there, that this will create an enormous amount of traffic on streets that were not designed for this level of traffic. If you could please show picture 2 as well, which I have. As a parent, I'm deeply concerned about the lack of consideration for accessibility and the needs of individuals like our son, Ethan. We must recognize that this development disregards the daily challenges that people with mobility issues face. Navigating crowded streets filled with traffic is already difficult for them, and this project will only make it worse. This picture of Ethan on Collingwood Place, when there was a particularly high number of cars parked on the street, it gives you some idea of the pedestrian challenges with increased traffic. This is a real concern. Our family implores the municipal government to prioritize the safety of all our residents, particularly those with mobility challenges. The decisions you make will affect real people, people like Ethan, and others who face mobility challenges every day in our neighborhood. We respectfully request the Mayor and Council to amend this rezoning application, addressing the significant safety issues it presents. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Alan, and apologies for that brief interruption. You do have a couple of questions. I'm going to advance Councillor Clausen. He has a question for you, and then I have a question. So go ahead, Councillor Clausen.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you again for coming back. Your last visit and with you and your family members and the story of Ethan and access of Collingwood Place, I think really resonated with all of us. And of course, as a result of the previous application further down Dunbar Street, we saw new direction towards to staff to explore. Strongly urge them to make sure that the Dunbar was going to be the access and not Collingwood Place. We just, I'm not sure if you heard earlier some of the comments from city staff that there was going to be some effort to mitigate the changes around what we determined is actually an alley, West 44th. But I just want to make sure from your perspective, given that the entrance to this building is proposed is a short piece of that alley and no longer entering through Collingwood Place, where, as you described, there are no sidewalks. Does that give you some relief in the sense that it sounds to me like that there have been some measures here, and I believe we are going to be giving direction based upon the yellow memo to ensure that the entrance is coming in off of 44th and Dunbar.
I wish to thank Mayor and Council for being able to relook at this, and it will help for sure. But the real issue, I think the access off 44th would be beneficial if and only if it comes off 44th and goes straight into the new development, and there's some type of barrier to prevent other traffic from coming down that alleyway and using it. Because otherwise, there's going to be so much traffic coming down Collingwood Street and then zipping around the corner and going into them. Like all these, sharp corners, I mean, they're blind to him, right? In his wheelchair. I mean, he can get run over, and I'm always walking in front of him. That's the reality. So if you put it on 44th, yes, but only if you can block it off to prevent other traffic from entering in off of Collingwood Street.
Thanks very much. Chair, through you to staff, I just want to clarify this paving portion that the developer is obligated is literally extends to the length of their development. It does not go the entire length of the 44th Avenue alleyway, which would probably remain unpaved until the ratepayers in the area would like to have it paved. Is that correct?
That question was directed at staff.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Repaving would only extend up to until the edge of the property line for the frontage of the site.
Very good. Thanks very much. I thought that as much. And I interpret what that will mean is that the vehicles are unlikely to make 44th, the entire length, a a regular route just because it's unpaved and it'll be a little unbumpy. But again, I'm sure that as the process goes forward, we'll see what the final. But thank you very much for bringing your remarks here today.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alan. And I just have a quick question for you, just related to your comments. I think I heard in the context of talking about pedestrian safety and sidewalks, were you suggesting that we look at parking restrictions along Collingwood? Because you showed the picture at the end where you've got parking on either side and also no sidewalks. Is that something you were sort of inquiring about as something the city should look at, is having parking restrictions so that you wouldn't have that situation?
Well, in terms of parking restrictions, yeah, it should only, there should be signage which restricts parking to people living on Collingwood Street or Collingwood Place, local residents only. That's what should be there, to prevent people from parking there and walking down, because there's a little walkway that you can go down to Dunbar and enter and off of. Plus, there's going to be back entry points to the building just for safety, right? So when you build, you're putting 120 new units in a place where there used to be 3 homes for families, right? And so you're going to have all these extra cars. Where are they all going to park, right? And they're all going to be trying to park in the back in our neighborhood, and that's what's going to create that picture scenario that I put up to you, which was a very rare event, which happened in our neighborhood, but again demonstrates what the impact of additional parking will be in our neighborhood for everybody, particularly people with mobility issues.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that point. I see Councillor Carr is on the queue to ask you a question, so I'm going to advance her.
Great.
Thank you. Actually, if through you, I could ask a question of staff.
Yeah, certainly.
I believe I heard at the beginning of the presentation today that the applicant was talking about moving front door access and parkade access to Dunbar instead of 44th or Collingwood, and replacing, I'm not sure what they were going to replace, but something with abundant landscaping and a sidewalk. So perhaps you could clarify, because it does pertain to the request or the suggestion being made by the speaker.
What's being proposed?
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But like I said, especially if it's off the laneway, 44th Avenue, there should, and even if you're just sort of driving it out, if you're going to just pave that one portion, people are still going to come down that back alleyway and roll right in there like they
I think that
do already.
the language I was hearing was around a quote abundant landscaping and a sidewalk. So I don't know if staff have.
I think you're referring to the applicants.
Yes, I was.
Comments, and I think we can't ask any more questions of the applicant.
No, I know. That's why I was asking.
Perhaps, yeah, staff could address that question.
Yeah, I think so. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alan.
Yes, so the address is off of Dunbar, and then the applicant did mention having landscaping in the back on Collingwood and removing the laneway access from there with the landscaping.
Thank you. That's clarifying it for me, and I hope for the speaker as well. Thank you very much.
Did you have any further questions, Councillor?
No, that was just the clarification I was seeking.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Speaker number 7 has withdrawn, so we will move to speaker number 8, Drishti Katwani.
Yes, hello?
Hi.
Yes.
Go ahead. You have
Hi.
5 minutes.
All right, thank you. Hi, I'm Drishti Katwani, and I'm a 4th-year anthropology student in UBC, and I'm in complete support of the rezoning project for the site to be used as a 5-story rental building. When I needed to move this August, I thought the moving process would be just the same as before. I've moved multiple times, considering I'm an international student who came to Vancouver alone. Finding houses and moving completely independently wasn't something I was unfamiliar with. I needed to move up by September 1st. Thus, I began searching for a new place in the first week of August. 2 weeks later, I had managed to find a place. Out of the 90 to 100 posts that I had reached out to, from Facebook Marketplace to Craigslist, from the 10 that had responded, I had finally managed to secure one place. I had not prepared myself to be met with the fear that I possibly wouldn't have a place to live, and that I wouldn't have a place in time or at all. When have I ever had to deal with the feeling of possibly not having a place to live? Housing is a staple. It's a given. I was obviously going to find a place, just like everyone else, but this time, what if I didn't? What if I was one of the lucky ones that had managed to find an availability? To find a new space was hard enough, let alone remaining within budget was proven to find in the space.
You're cutting out, just to let you know, I'm not sure, you're cutting out a little bit.
Okay, should I restart, or how should we go about this?
Keep going. You just cut out there for a bit.
Okay. To find a new space was hard enough, let alone remaining within a budget was proven to be impossible. My main focus this time around the housing search was to find an available space. The only so-called easier spaces to get a response from were the ones that were astoundingly expensive, unaffordable, and unrealistically priced. But after all, I needed a place to live. Being an international student, I am so lucky and grateful to have found a home that was near campus, even though it was completely out of budget. The compromise just had to be made. This was aside from all the other expenses that had to be taken into consideration with moving. Moving prices, security deposits, and buying new items and furniture all had to be accounted for. This search for housing this year was an overwhelming conundrum, one that many face and hadn't anticipated for. I wonder how many people aren't lucky enough to have space, especially those who have to live by strict budgets, because if they don't, they will not be able to survive. The houses are filling up, and with it, prices are increasing, which is only going to result in deducting the percentages of people housing over time. Who knows if I'll be able to even find a new place in case I have to move. Competition is only getting harder. With reflection, I understand that my experience with trying to find housing this summer was a very blue era in Vancouver's rental and housing history, one that would be marked with crisis and would be the preliminary stages of a housing emergency. It is astonishing when you realize there is an image of Vancouver that is oblivious to the already present and growing problems when West Vancouver is facing. Densification is very real, and it is only going to cause more problems if this issue isn't handled directly. Buying property with such nonchalance and privilege that these homeowners float in cannot be discarded as a clever and expensive business deal, but rather as an incredibly detrimental and deaf action that, if were to be approved, would only inflict even harsher realities on a major volume of people in Vancouver. It would be careless for the council to condone a deal. No one wins except a very small part of this country. Being an international student, I, like 1,000 residents of Vancouver, have come here in hopes of a brighter future. To be allowed to live and grow within a city that, if I were to work in and contribute to, is a dream and privilege that not many get to experience, and I am incredibly grateful for Canada being accepting of international students and wanting to cooperate and experience the myriad of intelligences and geniuses that are coming from all around the world. Housing isn't a luxury, it's a staple, and it's urgent that the Council understand this. I would hope that the range of stories that we are hearing today shine a light on the problem that needs involvement, an issue that cannot be discarded. Vancouver is already does not have enough availability for already residing and future residents of this country. Every attempt made to this issue solidifies the potential for the crisis to grow. To reach a stage where members of Vancouver look back in reflection and guilt, the densification was an issue that was to have been dealt with as early as possible. Right now, I, along with other multiple UBC students who feel the same way, are in full support of the rezoning project. Thank you.
Thank you very much for calling in this afternoon. You don't have any questions. We'll move to our next speaker on the list, Peter Dowdy, on the phone. Do we have Peter?
Yes. Hi, my name is Peter Dowdy, and I'm a resident of Vancouver, and I'm calling in to support this application. It's another really strong application under the SRP, and it provides much-needed attainable housing to people who will live in a high amenity area, well-served by transit. We've heard from a lot of students that this might be one of the only ways they can find housing, given how difficult it has been to build housing closer to UBC. And all in all, this is another great proposal. That said, people's concerns about safety and accessibility, I think, are totally valid. If you look at this area, there are many missing sidewalks. There are a lot of poor interactions between motorists and pedestrians and people in mobility devices, and that's because we have historically not made that kind of safety the responsibility of the municipality, but we have tried to extract it piecemeal from individual developments, and that's simply not sustainable. I, as one of the taxpayers who has been spared rate increases by this approach, would like to give it back. Please raise my taxes so that people don't get run over in the streets when they could be using safe sidewalks, when they could be protected by traffic signals. So I don't think that we should try to use these individual developments to create infrastructure that falls well outside of their frontage. I think that we need to have a conversation about how the municipality needs to take more responsibility for safety and accessibility so that people don't have to fear that a new development is going to cause the loved one to get run over by a vehicle due to the fact that that vehicle has to interact with underdeveloped, unsafe infrastructure in the area. Finally, the provincial legislative environment is evolving very rapidly, and we run the risk of the proposals that are coming under this policy actually being less dense and less forward-thinking than what the provincial minimums will allow. And as a city, we've historically had policies that are always a step ahead of everyone else. And I hope that if another proposal like this were to make its way to the city early next year, that it would see substantially more units and it would be allowed in substantially more places, and that we would continue to have an SRP and a building bylaw that makes Vancouver a world-class city with more housing, better housing, and better land use policies than everybody else, a bit of swagger. So in conclusion, this is a great application. It will benefit the community. It will benefit all the people who live here. And I hope that as the legislative environment changes, we change with it and continue to be cutting edge. Please support this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. There's no questions for you. I'll move to speaker number 10, Brian Fulton, also on the phone. Go ahead, Brian. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair Dominato and Council. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to this rezoning application. My wife and I live on Collingwood Place, and I oppose this application, but not because of neighborhood densification, which I'm in favor of, and certainly not because there are going to be UBC students living there. We have actually a house full of UBC students that have lived beside us for a couple of years. But I oppose it solely on the grounds of pedestrian, cyclist, and traffic safety. I want to acknowledge and thank those councillors who have actually taken the time to view the actual layout of the Collingwood Place cul-de-sac. The point has been made several times before that there are no sidewalks on the entire length of the cul-de-sac. Less obvious, but otherwise a fact, is the width of Collingwood Place roadway is 25% narrower than today's norm for residential streets, which I believe the city engineer earlier had commented was 10 meters. The current absence of much traffic or vehicles parked on the street make the layout safe for pedestrians and cyclists using Collingwood Place today. But any material increases in traffic or on-street parking that can reasonably be expected from not only the proposed 94-unit development under consideration now, but also the one that was approved by Council back in October, is going to pose a considerable and unreasonable safety risk for all pedestrians and cyclists on Collingwood Place. As grandparents with regular child care responsibilities for a toddler and an infant, the increase in traffic means it will no longer be safe to push a stroller or walk with our grandchildren on the street where we live. And that strikes me as being the exact opposite of the walkable neighborhood that urban planners and residents in Vancouver want to create. I've taken the opportunity to read all 210 applications in support, or at least the comments. And it seemed to me that those who support the application based on the need for more density in Vancouver ignore the real safety issues for this particular street for neighborhood pedestrians and cyclists. The stated or implied comment of supporters is that any opposition to this rezoning is another example of NIMBYism, but ignoring pedestrian and cyclist safety should not and would not be tolerated in any Vancouver neighborhood. The current rezoning application should not sacrifice the safety of pedestrians and cyclists or the walkability of a neighborhood. Requiring a developer to install a sidewalk on the Collingwood Place side of the development site is not a solution to pedestrian safety when the rest of the cul-de-sac remains without sidewalks, nor does it address safety for cyclists. Increasing residential density in any neighborhood and ensuring the safety of pedestrians and cyclists in that neighborhood should not be mutually exclusive goals. But that's the result of the blanket application of RR2B zoning policy to 6065 and 6075 Collingwood Place. The failure of the rezoning application to recognize the obvious safety issues for a street with no sidewalks is the reason I oppose this application. Installing restricted parking, I suggest, is not going to be a full answer either. I have no doubt that with limited parking in this development, those who have vehicles or who use rideshare will seek to park on Collingwood Place. And if it's a rideshare like Evo, my understanding is the current policy is those cars are able to park on any residential street, regardless of where the individual lives. So, Chair Dominato and Council, I respectfully ask that given the unique nature of the Collingwood Place cul-de-sac, you either refuse this application or make it conditional on the development of a comprehensive and realistic plan that addresses the safety issues raised by me and others, which is what I understand will be required in a typical CD1 zoning. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian. Thanks for sharing your views. We'll move to Speaker 11, Felicia Chapeta, also on the line. Do we have Felicia? Go ahead. You have 5 minutes. Felicia, you're there? Maybe we'll come back. We'll come back. Okay, Speaker 12, Jenna Homan, Advocator Artist Housing Association. Do we have Jenna on the line?
Yes, hello.
Go ahead, Jenna. You have 5 minutes to address council.
Thank you so much. My name is Jenna Holman, and I'm a local artist here in Vancouver, BC. I moved here 3 years ago from Vancouver Island to pursue a career in dance. And when it comes to pursuing a career in the arts, most of us usually look to living in Toronto or Vancouver because these two places offer the most work for artists at the moment. Unfortunately, it's very difficult to actually do this given the housing situation here in Vancouver. Since moving to Vancouver, I've watched as the housing and rental crisis has continuously worsened to a point where in August 2023, my roommate, who is also a dancer, and I had to leave our apartment due to our third roommate moving back home. We now reside in a studio space located in Marpole where we pay $2,600 a month. And that is actually a deal as the studio was on the market for $3,000 originally. We are still in search of a permanent home that we can afford and live comfortably in. I have had to work 3 jobs at once during one point living here, all while trying to pursue my career as an artist in Vancouver. And I am not the only artist who has experienced situations like this. I hear of it all the time, and these housing challenges make it very, very difficult to pursue a career that you have to spend years building with not much pay. That's why I'm advocating for more affordable housing, including rental, throughout Vancouver. Supporting people like myself could also mean buildings could have slightly more creative common rooms that take this profession into account. Examples could be turning a boardroom into a studio for tapes, rehearsals, voiceover, anything to make life as an artist more accessible and affordable within the city. Vancouver actually has a large artist population, and the city is based on art. Look at any alleyway or side of a building to see murals, drive past live film sets, take a walk past Robson Square, and you'll see dancers rehearsing and creating. One of the most beautiful parts of our city is the fact that there is art around every corner. If we want artists to keep coming here, we need to build up all parts of our artist community. We want people to be able to follow their passions and dreams by moving here without the stress of working other jobs just to do it. For me, I was fortunate enough to find a way to move here, and I want to stay to pursue my passion. But the burden of high rent truly makes living here a difficult struggle daily that is not sustainable. I encourage you to approve this proposal tonight, but much more rental and affordable housing all across the city. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jenna. Thanks for calling in this afternoon. We'll move to
Thank you.
Speaker 13, Ty Yevos. Are you on the line, Ty? Ty, if you're on the line, you have 5 minutes to address council.
Speaker 13 is not on the line.
Thank you. Speaker 14, Ola Onishenko. we have speaker 14?
Speaker 14 has also disconnected.
Thank you. Speaker 15, Courtney Vi. Do we have Courtney on the line?
Here.
Is that Courtney?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, Courtney, you have 5 minutes to address council.
Okay, great. Let me know if the connection drops at all. I am also an artist here in the city. I moved to Vancouver 21 years ago to pursue acting. And when I first moved here, it was not that difficult to find a place to live, and the rent was relatively reasonably priced. I've lived everywhere in the city, from Cambie Street to Kitsilano to downtown to East Bend, all over the years. And for about 10 years, I actually spent time in a very reasonably priced apartment on South Granville that I got the all too well-known Vancouver renoviction from. It went down as probably one of the best renovictions in the city ever, but I was forced to start paying $1,000 more in rent because over the time that I lived in that place in South Granville, rents in the city just skyrocketed. I am also a single mother, and I raised my child on my own with not really much financial assistance from his father. And I was paying nearly $2,000 a month in rent on Cambie Street, and I got a rental increase, and I could no longer afford the apartment. I was able to secure housing at a slightly below market value in family housing that the city of Vancouver developed back in the 80s. And I love my apartment. I've been there for 6 years. I do know full well the support you can have for affordable housing for artists to continue working and thriving and creating in the city. I am currently publishing a play that I would like to put on stage in the next few years, and I was recently able to step back into dance classes on a weekly basis to start my training again now that my son is a little bit older. But I do also clean the studio on a weekly basis to cover the cost of the classes because, as Jenna said earlier, being an artist in this city is not cheap. So I do support this proposal. I work a full-time salaried position at a post-secondary film school here in the city. And even then, I'm still strapped every single month when it comes to covering all of my bills and paying rent. And I'm always curious how younger people are able to do it with the amount that rent has gone up in the 20 years that I've lived in the city. It's astronomical. I don't understand how we let it get this bad. And I do support this project and any other projects that come along in the city so that the creatives can stay here, so that we can enjoy the city and we can keep creating in this beautiful, wonderful space that we call Vancouver. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for your comments. Appreciate you calling in this afternoon. Thank you, Courtney. I understand speaker 14, Ola Onishenko, is back on the line.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes. Go ahead. You have 5 minutes to address council.
Great. Hi, my name is Olha Onishenko, and I'm a local dancer, actress, and artist living in Vancouver, British Columbia. I moved here a year and a half ago, and during this time, I've seen my colleagues struggle because they can't afford decent housing options. They work 2-3 jobs just to pay for their apartments, food, and training, and like nothing else. Even working as a project manager in Lululemon, I can't afford to live in a good place. And as an artist, I need to do self-tapes, have dance trainings in the studio, and I can't keep counting money and being creative at the same time. My friend and colleague Jenna Holman spoke earlier, and I would like to echo what she has said. I would like to see more housing options in Vancouver in all neighborhoods, and not only for artists, but for everyone as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much for calling in. And I'm just going to double check if we have speaker 11, Felicia Chapeta, back on the line. Operator?
Speaker 11 is not on the line.
Thank you. In that case, I will do our third and final call for additional speakers. If there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll free. Oh, hang on. I think I did the second, did I not? I have. This is third. We're at third. Yeah. Yeah, I did. I am on our final third call for speakers. Please call toll free 1-833-353-8610, followed by the participant code 1061-445# before the close of the speakers list. Phone number will be posted on X and made available on the live stream. Any speakers in the council chamber, please come forward to the podium. Clerks, are we going to take a 5-minute recess then? It will take a 5-minute recess. Thank you.
So all three of them didn't get to speak. Olha got brought back on, but like
Thanks, Leslie. I'm here. I'll just have my video on in just a few minutes.
Thanks, Council. I am just going to check again to see if, do we have any speakers on the line, clerks?
Yes, we have one speaker.
Okay, one speaker. Okay, speaker 13. Is this Ty? Ty, are you on the line?
Hello?
Hi, Ty. You have 5 minutes to address council.
Hi, can we all hear me here?
Yes. Yeah, go ahead. You have 5 minutes.
Hi, thank you so much from before. I actually was on the line. For some reason, there's just a technical issue. But just to formally introduce myself, my name is Ty Javos. I'm a actor, filmmaker, and writer here in Vancouver, BC. Just to touch off of what Jenna had mentioned before, affordable housing, I think it's been a crisis that the majority of the people in the city have been struggling with. I know for myself, I'm a Alberta export, and coming to the city to find something, that was in my price range that would allow me to not only pursue my dream, but to live comfortably in the city has been a notoriously difficult challenge for myself, and I know it's been a lot for a lot of people in this chat as well. What I would like to see changed is just more options for people who are pursuing arts and culture here in Vancouver to find some place affordable to live, find some place that they can feel safe and comfortable. I've had a number of challenges finding places where not only was comfortability an option, but also safety. Not knowing anyone, kind of being new to Vancouver, having friends or family out here, I found myself having to kind of take what was the most available and cheapest option to me at the time. And unfortunately, that usually involved meeting people for the first time or having to make last-minute decisions about where I was going to be living. Somehow, some way, I've managed to stay here for the past few years since moving in 2020, but that has not come without its difficulties. I've had to work typically between 2 or 3 jobs to, just afford to survive here. As an artist, you incur many expenses investing into your work, especially film. It's quite the, can be an expensive hobby sometimes. And unfortunately, being an actor or any kind of creative, unless you're making that investment yourself, there's not a lot of people who can stand by you to help you with those expenses while, at the same time affording a decent, comfortable place to live. I know it can be a big ask sometimes, but there are some incredible people I've met in this industry being here in Vancouver. And, what I truly hope and wish for is just to see these people thrive, be healthy and happy and productive. And, when people like this, like these creatives in this city, when they thrive, the city thrives. And, I know this council has the opportunity to do something amazing and truly give back to the community. I'm not sure in what shape or form that looks like, but, giving decent folks a place to rest their head at night would definitely be a great start. So thank you very much for my time, and that's all.
Thanks, Ty, for your comments today. Clerks, do we have anyone else on the line?
No, we have no other callers on the line and no one in the chamber.
In that case, the speakers list is now closed. Have we had much in the way of correspondence since 12 noon? No. If that's the case, then I am now closing the receipt of public comments as well. This is a time for the applicant. Does the applicant have any closing comments they wish to make at this time? Nope. Okay. Staff, do you have any closing comments?
Staff would like to remind Council of the 3 yellow memos attached to this report and that all approvals in principle today will be in accordance with the yellow memos. Thank you.
Thank you for that additional comment. Council, do you have any further questions for staff? And indeed you do. So we will start with Councillor Claassen. Go ahead, Councillor Claassen. Questions to staff?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm not sure if others have the very same question. I just want, from a procedural standpoint, I realize that council direction is being requested in the third yellow memo with regards to the provision of vehicular and loading access off West 44th Avenue. And I just wondering if there needs to be an additional motion to include that, or if that would just be accepted as the whole motion that would include the yellow memo.
Staff are going to address that.
Hi, staff. It's Yardley McNeil, Director of the Rezoning Center. Yes, we'd please ask you to move that along with your recommendation for the application.
Okay, so
move memo number 3.
Okay, and so would we, I'm sorry, we would be, just looking here at the, would we add that as a letter, or, I'm sorry, just again, I'm trying to get this.
Maybe you could clarify what needs to be moved in addition to staff recommendations in the original report.
It would be memo number 3, which is adding a new condition to Appendix B to provide access off of 44th Avenue. And so we would ask you to include that in your deliberations today about the application.
Okay.
And you can do that by saying we move the memo in accordance with as drafted today, something to that effect.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
One of us will attempt that. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. Great clarification. Thank you, Councillor Clausen. Do you have any further questions?
Just general remarks in the sense that I'm quite grateful for, first of all, our speakers that came here today. We heard a range of views, certainly on the need for housing, the need to make this cohesive with the community.
Councillor Clausen, I'm just going to interrupt you for a minute. If you're intending to do final remarks, then we need to move the report. So right now we're going to just do final questions to staff, and then we can get into comments. I just don't want to get ahead of ourselves.
I'll pass. Move on. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Zhou.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. So I just have some question to the through you to staff. The first question is regarding Alan's question about putting up barriers at the end of the property line. So I understand beyond the property line, the road will not be paved. So most likely the car will not be going there. But how likely we can put up barriers just to make sure that the vehicles is not going to pass through? Or maybe someone from the engineering team.
Yeah, Alan Chen from Transportation Engineering. Engineering does not anticipate much shortcutting to be happening in this lane, provided that West 43rd is fully paved and wider than 44th. Currently, West 44th Ave also serves as a parkade garage access for many of the residents living along this block. Therefore, blocking access in this lane will not be feasible without further public consultation with residents.
Okay, thank you. So I guess my follow-up question is, how likely we will see you think the vehicles will pass through the property line, go through 44th and come all the way across Collingwood?
Not very likely.
Okay, thank you. The other question is not specifically about this project, but the overall question regarding we heard a lot of complaints about the sidewalks on the Collingwood Street and the Collingwood Place. So is there any plan to include sidewalks in that neighborhood?
Yeah, engineering has a capital program for walking infrastructure in the city, and the program is prioritized based on analysis of different factors such as equity, demographics, proximity to schools, community centers, and transit. And the city delivers approximately 1 kilometer of new sidewalks every year through our capital funding. Currently, the network is about 80% complete, with about 450 kilometers still missing. For additional sidewalk requests, residents can request for new sidewalks to be put on the wait list by contacting engineering through 311.
So there's no estimated timeline for this neighborhood yet?
At the moment, I don't have information in terms of the timelines to share.
Okay, thank you. And also the other question is about the parking restrictions. So how likely we can do a permit parking in this neighborhood?
Yeah, currently the parking in the area, all the on-street parking is unregulated. And for sure, if residents are finding that it's becoming harder for them to find parking spaces in the area, residential permit parking can be introduced into the area.
Okay, so is there a way we can reach out to the neighborhood, let them know what is the process they have to follow?
Again, they would be able to reach out to the engineering department through 311, and our parking staff would have a look and assess the need for parking permits.
Okay, thank you. That's all my question. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Zhou. Councillor Montague.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, a couple of my questions got asked there. Just following up on Councillor Zhou's questions with regards to parking restrictions. I think city staff and the applicant have done a pretty good job of mitigating a lot of the issues that have arisen over the last little while. But the parking on Collingwood, especially with that pedestrian walkthrough between Collingwood and Dunbar, I can see being an issue. And I know Alan Kenny brought it up when he was speaking about his family and his concerns. And I know Councillor Zhou talked about restrictions, potentially permit parking, resident only parking. But one of the things that came up also was ride share vehicles. And I'm wondering if someone from the city can explain exactly where ride share vehicles are allowed and aren't allowed in the city to park, and how we potentially, and if restrictions like resident only restrictions could prevent Collingwood from becoming potentially a parking lot for rideshare vehicles.
Staff, would you like to comment on that question?
Yeah, currently the West 44th is wide enough, from 7 to 8 meters wide. It's wide enough to accommodate parking on one side of Collingwood, and still allow for motor vehicles to travel through. In terms of car sharing like Evo and Moto, that's currently available citywide across the city, and essentially car share vehicles would be able to park on street anywhere they want, and including residential permit zones.
Okay. Is there any way to deal with that if it becomes, I don't want to start putting the cart before the horse here, but is there a way to deal with that potentially if it becomes an issue down the road after the development is in, and residents say we start seeing, 5, 10, a dozen rideshare vehicles parked on Collingwood because it's a convenient place to park?
Unfortunately, I don't have the answer to that at the moment.
Okay. Maybe that's something I'll follow up with, and we might have to just deal with as that arises down the road, or if it arises down the road. Okay, thank you. Those are my questions.
Thank you, Councillor Montague. I'm just going to quickly advance myself on the queue. I just a follow up. Clerks, yeah, okay. Just a follow up question to Councillor Zhou's questions, just around. He asked both about parking and access on, and I'm just wondering if you can comment on, can council, is it within the purview of council to give any direction today around sidewalks or parking?
If council were to provide amendments or recommendations to any sort of new parking restrictions, I believe so. Not entirely certain.
I see your colleague up at the podium, so maybe I'll.
Okay, thanks, Sue.
Thanks for the question. I think it would depend on the nature of the request. Certainly, the conditions do currently have requirements in terms of the frontage improvements in terms of sidewalks. So I think we would need to evaluate the specific request from council to see whether it could be added.
That's on the Dunbar side, though, correct? Not on the Collingwood.
There are, and perhaps Alan can correct me, there are requirements for the Dunbar side, but I believe it's also on the Collingwood side.
Okay.
Only for the frontage, though, not
just the
frontage
beyond. Of where the building will be, not the length of Collingwood, for example, where we heard. And I also heard from staff that obviously residents could potentially request these things as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe I'll leave my questions there. I don't see anyone else on the queue at this time. And so I will need a member of council to move the recommendations, but also to include the 3 yellow memos, including the 3rd memo. Moved by Councillor Clausen. Seconder, Councillor Zhou.
Councillor Boyle.
Sorry, I think I heard, is that Councillor Boyle?
Happy to, or Councillor Zhou if he's there.
Okay. Okay, I think I have a seconder. And so we will, I will just, sorry, before I go ahead, Councillor Clausen, I do want to just confirm that Councillor Bly, you've been able to review the speakers. Councillor Bly?
I've been online the entire time. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you. Okay, in that case, we do have a mover, a seconder. Oh, sorry. I'm going to pause for a minute. We will move to the main queue now and then move into debate. Go ahead, Councillor Clausen, please, and put yourself on the main queue. Yes, go ahead.
Good. So I'm clear now what we need to do with regard to appending the conditions approval 2.10, which is the provision of all vehicular and loading access off West 44th Avenue. I just want to be clear that we are going to approve that 2.10 being included in the Appendix B.
That's correct, as I understand. Clerks or staff, do you want to confirm that? I'm seeing heads nod. Councillor Clausen.
Do I have to put that as a separate motion?
Thank you. You can just say, and as I think as law is requested, is to move all the memos in conjunction with your deliberations today.
Okay, very good. So then we, with the motion that we will move all the memos, and of course we have a seconder for.
Yeah, they've been moved and seconded, and now we're in debate. So you have
very good.
4 minutes.
Again, I just I got started a little bit prematurely before, but I want to thank all the speakers that came in today, who gave a range of perspectives, including the incredibly important need for housing. We heard from groups representing students at UBC that were also really determined to make sure that we create more rental opportunities. And also representatives of our creative community also really urgently, desperately hoping that we can get more housing and rental housing available in our city. But we also, once again, heard from the community to make sure that that any changes that are brought forward do not impact them from a public safety standpoint, to making sure that in the case of Ethan, that his accessibility is not impacted, and certainly his family members. And we also had, I think, good discussion as well around the entrance around 44th Avenue being a determination for a determinant for the success of this project. And the proponent came forward, described notwithstanding the challenges of the grade there, that this is something that they were going to include. So with that, I am prepared to support this project, and would very much like to one day see it up and occupied up on Dunbar Street. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Clausen. Councillor Carr.
Thanks very much, Chair. I'm also happy to support this application. I just want to reflect and take note that we did receive a lot of correspondence on this, so 214 pieces of correspondence in support. 9 others opposed, but that's a very overwhelming sense of public support. Reflected also in the speakers who were here largely in support, almost all in support. Appreciate the students, the members of the creative community as well, who came to speak. And the raising of issues, because it's obvious that the raising of issues at a previous public hearing actually had an impact on this one, and there were changes by the applicant that I really want to acknowledge. Obviously listened to the concerns of residents, and so changing the access to Dunbar, for example, and really paying attention to the traffic issues on the back streets, I think really, to me, it's wonderful to see working with the public and with the public interest in mind around that. So thank you. And with that, just to say, confirm my support.
Thank you, Councillor Carr. Councillor Zhou.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. So yeah, thanks for all the speakers. Thanks for all your comments. I think I'm also prepared to support this project. for the concern regarding the 44th Avenue. I do see from the layout, the staff's recommendation is very unlikely, we have a car pass through that to go to Collingwood. And when I see the layout, I think that's probably the case, because 43rd is probably easier for the car to go. I highly doubt car will cut through the 44 and go Collingwood. So I don't think that would be an issue. And regarding the sidewalk and parking, so I think there are mitigation strategies. I'm really hope that we can work with. I'm willing to work with the neighborhood, particularly for with Alan's family, to make sure there will be a sidewalk established in the future. And also the parking. I think we also heard there's some other parking mitigation strategy for the parking. I think the bottom line is we are in a housing crisis. If we reject this project, this 100 units will be gone forever. So that would be a permanent impact to the community, to many families in Vancouver. So with that, and with a very cautious approach and some possibility for the mitigation strategy, so I'm going to support this project.
Thank you, Councillor Zhou. Councillor Montague.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I think there's been a lot of compelling speakers, not only at today's public hearing, but when I look back at another public hearing for an applicant that was next door to this. I think both the applicant and city staff have done a really good job of mitigating some of those potential problems with regards to pedestrian safety, emergency vehicle access, that sort of thing. I'm prepared to support this project. I will say, though, I hope that there is ongoing conversations between the residents and our engineering department to deal with any issues like parking that may arise once this development is completed and we have occupancy. So I'm hoping that those conversations happen. Whether that's signage or permits, additional sidewalks, that sort of thing. I think those are hurdles that can be dealt with as we go. But I don't think at this point they're something that should prevent this project from moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Montague, and I'll just advance myself as well. I'd also like to thank all the speakers who called in today and those of you who've come here in chambers to speak with us. And just to echo a couple of comments of my colleagues, is I've listened very carefully to the discussion, and I am prepared to support the application today. I do want to say two things stand out for me, and Councillor Montague just underscored one of those things, is that if this passes, assuming it will today, I do think that ongoing engagement with the neighborhood around mitigation efforts related to parking and even more importantly, I think pedestrian safety. And I can speak firsthand from another part of the city where there was a lack of sidewalks and it was detrimental. So I think that is something as a city, and I know staff are listening and nodding. And so I highlight that because it's not just related to development in the city. It's actually that we have a number of streets in our city that do not have sidewalks and do not have safe passage for residents who are walking or cycling. So I want to acknowledge that because I think it's a really important point. And I appreciate, Alan, you coming and speaking and representing your family. And then secondly, I just want to highlight what I did hear from the applicant earlier is that through their engagement, through the builders, that they did hear community and neighborhood feedback and they adapted their project as a result of that feedback. And again, I think that's another testament to the builder and an example of good practice, and what we want to see more of is that when projects come to this council, that due diligence and that engagement with community and the neighborhood has taken place. And I appreciate the builder's not responsible for all things, for example, in this case, the broader sidewalk system or parking regulation. But I think that's a really important piece of this work, and I appreciate the work that was undertaken there. But in light of the need to add additional housing and rental supply to the city and the proximity to UBC and other things, I am supportive of this project. Thank you. With that, I don't see anyone further on the queue, so I'll simply call the question. This will be a recorded vote, so council, please vote on screen. And clerks, if you can mark his vote in favor.
Chair, this is Councillor Bly. If I could get a vote assist in favor, please.
Yes, certainly. We'll make note of that. And I think we have all votes in, and the recommendations pass unanimously. Thank you, Council, for the deliberations today. I do simply need a motion to adjourn. Moved, seconded. All in favor? Aye. We're good, clerks? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Council. Thank you, staff. Thank you to our speakers and the applicant.
Thank you for chairing, Councillor Dominato.
Thank you, Councillor Boyle. You're welcome.